Welcome to My Health and Safety, the podcast designed to bridge the gap between your personal and workplace wellness. I'm Tamara Misewicz-Healey, a passionate health and safety professional who strives to help create a happier and healthier world. Workplace health and safety is simply a continuation of our personal health and safety, but we often feel powerless at work. You know, where we currently spend over a third of our life. Although it may feel hopeless to integrate the two, I'm here to challenge that it's very much within reach and is absolutely necessary for our long-term well-being. Now, let's learn how to take things from powerless to powerful. Hello, and welcome back to the My Health and Safety podcast. This is Tamara Misewicz-Healey, and I'm sharing a special episode today. I know, we're in the middle of our risk assessment micro series, so what am I doing? Things have gotten pretty hectic, but the next episode on risk assessment will be coming out soon. However, I thought I'd break it up by sharing a guest episode I just did called Tips to Have a No Bummer Summer. It is not only educational, but entertaining and full of great things to keep in mind this summer, which is why I also want to share it with my listeners on the My Health and Safety podcast. So I hope you enjoy this summer safety episode I provided to host Jeannine Luby on the Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl podcast. Here it is.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Jeannine Luby. And I have been talking this month in June about fun things to do for the summer. I focused pretty much locally this time in northeastern Pennsylvania. I was talking about some of my memories from being born and raised in Scranton and, going to picnics, going to the drive-in. And last week I had on Marianne Savakinis my apologies, Marianne, from the Lackawanna Historical Society. And we talked about the incredible things you can do here in the summer to appreciate the architecture, to help support the Historical Society. And so it's great that, it's summertime and we tend to be more active, or we try to be, because, we want to pack all of our fun into a few months and get outside. And I personally love going kayaking. I love hiking. I haven't been doing as much of that lately, but the kayaking is so much fun. And just, seeing a concert outdoors, appreciating art festivals outside, anything we can do outdoors is always fun. So this week's episode is going to focus a little bit about important stuff that, we could take a little lighthearted approach about, but it's going to be important to listen to, about safety and how we can stay safe this summer. And I have with me an expert in safety. Before I introduce her, I always like to say how I got connected with my guest. And I think connections are so important because they can lead to great things in our lives. You never know. I mean, I've told my story of meeting people in France that I became friends with and who came here to Scranton. So you never know, even meeting a stranger, bumping into them and just talking to them and being open can lead to amazing things. So I was actually at an NEPA Networkers. If you're not familiar, check them out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. They hold evening mixers every quarter, but they also do these nice every other week. They try to do Luzerne County one week, Lackawanna County another week, these coffee mixers. So you can get together somewhere at a coffee place. You don't have to drink coffee, by the way. I do, but you don't have to. You could have water, you could have tea, you could have a smoothie, you could have whatever the heck you want. You could have a cup of air, I suppose, if you want. And you just show up and talk to people. So I met my guest here today at the recent one, one of the recent ones, about a month ago at the Commonwealth Coffee House. If you haven't been there, check it out, downtown Scranton, right there on the corner of, I think it is Penn Avenue and Lackawanna. So we got to talking. We both do a podcast, and she will talk a little bit about her podcast today too. And we said, let's talk, because I do laughter yoga, which is, tied to health and wellness. And my guest does things that are tied to health and safety. So we thought, let's talk. So I would like to introduce and welcome my guest today, Tammy Misewicz-Healey from, I want to say her business name right, MiEHS Alliance. That is her company. So welcome, Tammy.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yes. And I love that you're a woman of action. I don't like to throw shade, but you meet people all the time and people have good intentions, I'll say, right? But you're like, oh yeah, we should get together. Let's do this. And then a lot of times things don't come to fruition. And you're like, I was thinking of you and I was going to reach out to you, but you beat me to the punch. You emailed me. We got together, had coffee, and here we are. So I love that.
Here we are. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this talk today.
Absolutely. And I was thinking before the podcast, different topics we're going to cover. And I kind of have a selfish one. I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, I talked about being at the drive-in and how, I prefer those over indoor movies anymore because we kind of have forgotten common courtesy. So people will take phone calls and I can't ignore that. I get too caught up in my own rapture and rage. So I go to the drive-in, but even at the drive-in, I said, I get annoyed because, somebody will put their kid up on top of the roof of the car. And I'm like, they're in my view. So selfishly, I want to say, isn't that unsafe, Tammy?
You call me, put me on speakerphone. Yeah, I have a safety professional here and she's got something to say.
Yeah. Can I put you on the next time I'm there? Really, you need to take your child down because Tammy says it's just really unsafe.
No, so we actually, as we'll talk today, safety is all about measuring the risk. So yes, how close are they to the edge of that roof that they would fall off? Or are they centered and would they be okay? But for you, I will say, hey, it's safer on the ground. We'll get some seats.
Yes, I'm giving you the stink eye, Tammy, it's never good to be on top of the car.
Never
good. So I've been kind of teasing, like I said, sunscreen safety, tick safety. I don't really know what we want to cover first, but why don't you tell us a little bit? I'd love to hear a little bit and have you share with our listeners your background, because I know when I looked you up and it's a great way you could stalk people on LinkedIn, read about them. I was reading your background. I'm like, damn, you have a PhD and all these interesting studies that I would never have even known existed. So tell us a little bit about your background and then how that led to your business and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually always had an interest in human health and well-being and its relationship to the environment. So originally I was I'm going to go study water quality and air quality and make sure that it's healthy for us to be living in and kind of see how that impacts our long-term well-being and health. So I didn't know exactly what degree you go for that, what that's called. So I kind of went for biology and environmental science and figured I'd figure out, do I go medical? Do I go more science? And then when I was considering graduate programs, I found out there was a thing called environmental health. And that's exactly what it is. It's how does our environment impact our health? And this doesn't just mean the outdoor environment. It's the indoor environment, it's the lighting we use, the air we breathe, our body positioning as we do tasks. It really considers everything, which is kind of what I love about it because there's always new things you're learning. It's very challenging. There's a lot to consider, so it never gets boring. So if anyone's ever interested in, pursuing a degree in this or a job in this, I definitely be willing to talk to them about it. But from there, I ended up after my graduate degree in public health with a focus in environmental health. I went into jobs, did consulting, worked in healthcare at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, an amazing place. Worked in manufacturing, decided to go back for my PhD. And I actually did not complete my PhD. I actually hated going back for my PhD.
You're not the first I've heard say that. I actually met someone recently who decided to take a step back and not finish. He said it was just, it was too much. And I get that. I mean, I have a master's, but I can't imagine. I've seen friends go for their PhD and I'll admit I don't have it in me or the desire or the passion to do what's required.
Yeah. If I continued right after my master's, I feel like I would have just done it. But to go back after working in the field for a long time, then to go back as a full-time student. And it was so specific. And I guess that's kind of what I didn't really consider. So I was going for a PhD in industrial hygiene out at the University of Iowa because it's a phenomenal program. But pretty much I'd be researching something that I wasn't super interested in for 4 to 6 years. That was really specific, and that wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I like, the broadness. So yeah, I kind of, was like, is this the right choice for me? Should I stick this out? And decided to leave. That it wasn't the best thing for me at that time. So yeah, went back into the job market and decided, you know what, I'm going to pursue my dream of having my own consulting firm anyway, because that was the goal, get my PhD and open my consulting firm. But I decided to kind of, just go ahead and do it anyway, figure it out, and continue to progress in my certifications and education along the way. So,
and that's I think a perfect example of you can still get what you want and do what you want without, like, some might say, oh yeah, you need that. You don't necessarily need. Some people might have finished it because it's really what they were passionate about, what they wanted. But for you, you didn't need it to fulfill your dreams and go about. And like you mentioned, certifications, there is always ongoing education that's in like smaller bites or smaller, more manageable things that, that are great for people to pick up on and learn so that they can stay current in things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times we do things because we feel like it's expected or like the world wants that. So like, especially in science, like a PhD means so much. So the pressure was just there to get it. But then when I was there, I was so unhappy. It wasn't a good fit. I was like, do I want to suck it up for that long? My husband and I were considering starting a family. I was like, there was like no work-life balance. You're in the lab all the time, helping your professors, helping undergraduates. So it just wasn't a good fit, and I had to be true to myself at that time. But, now here I am really doing something that I am extremely passionate about. And, I think it all kind of worked out for a reason.
So Tammy, you say you want to be happy. What's that about? No,
right.
You mean you can be happy and pursue what you really want to pursue?
You could, I mean, it's definitely never 100% happiness all the time.
No.
I always hate portraying that, like how we're on that constant pursuit of happiness. But it's, can you feel more happiness than unhappiness in your life? Can you get those good moments? Do you not absolutely hate what you're doing every day? Like, can you just have comfort and excitement in your life? I think everyone deserves to find that. That's like one of my biggest wishes for everyone, is that you're kind of true to yourself and find something that you're excited about so that you have better days and worse.
Yeah. And if, there's enough self-help books out there, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true that the idea of that, like you mentioned, pursuing, it's, we have to learn to be happy in the moment. So like you're saying, if you're doing what you're enjoying, then you're not happy all the time, but there are moments if you stop and recognize them and enjoy them, because the idea of pursuing is just so, when we stop and think about it, if happiness is always what you're pursuing, then you never have it, which makes sense. It's like, if you're always on the journey, then you're never enjoying. So you have to enjoy as cliche as it might be, the journey, so to speak, life, every moment that you can. And you're going to have a bunch of moments that you don't enjoy, because that's life. I mean, I think it helps us enjoy the better ones.
Yep, absolutely.
So now you have this business, and before we get into, safety, and I want to talk about, you're a mom too. Tell us just a little brief description for anyone out there, and we're going to do some work together, hopefully in the fall. But anybody who's listening who is at a business and they're like, ooh, you do stuff that could benefit companies for internal, like a whole different variety of ways to keep employees safe. So do you want to give a little plug there of what you can bring to a company?
Sure. Yeah, so we pretty much do all things workplace health and safety, from trainings to sampling to incident investigations or just risk assessments. But my passion and our true bread and butter is actually developing a culture of safety in the workplace. So we do this through 3 tiers. We empower every single employee. So we pretty much educate and empower every employee to play a role in their health and safety. Then we strengthen leadership. So we work with leadership. And finally, we build an environment for success. We put the tools and systems in place so that everyone actually can engage and participate. So the culture of safety building is definitely our passion. And we do a lot of educations on that. We'll go to workplace, do an education, or we could do a full partnership for 2 years to help you transform your company culture. We also have a leadership workshop related to it. And we also, besides businesses, we do education and outreach for young adults. So high school and college students. We believe in training people before they actually get to the workplace. I can't tell you how many workplaces I visit to teach hazard communication on all of those symbols that you find on chemical bottles. And I have 50-year-old men who have no idea what they mean. And I'm like, wow, like, why are we not training kids on this? Like, you know, that's where we need to be getting people, not like when they're nearing, you know, the end of their work career. Like, we need to be getting people when they're young, especially kids, because they are so vulnerable and higher risk takers. You know, they might be having a bonfire and be like, hey, let's, you know, throw this chemical in there.
My neighbor did it a couple of years ago, but I think they were old enough to know better, but it rattled my windows and the fire trucks were called by my other neighbor. So yeah.
It happens all the time. And they're not getting that education to think, okay, maybe we'll throw this in there. Like, let's look at this label and see, oh, wow, it's an explosion hazard or a fire hazard. We definitely don't want to throw that on there. It's so simple to teach. There's 9 symbols. I'm like, this can easily be integrated into health class in school. You know, when I think back of my health class, it was like nonstop, just like drugs, alcohol, sex. And that was like it. I felt like for the entire 12 years of school was like the same topics. And I think there's just so much room that we can improve upon that. And we can include things like this. Wow, hazard communication. What do these symbols mean? And just start empowering our youth to understand this stuff, keep an eye out for this stuff. And it really just helps them make better decisions. And yeah, that's what I try to do with the general workforce even, is just empower them, catch them up on things I believe we should have been trained on already, and just really empower them to start making some better decisions and calculating the risk of their activities, because you don't always have a safety professional there, you know, and nobody wants to be policed or, you know, mothered or anything. You know, it's really about empowering them and then letting them make those decisions based on, you know, their ability to measure that risk.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I'm jealous. You actually had sex education. I went to Catholic school. We didn't cover any of that. I'm clueless. Still
totally clueless, right?
So
it was very limited.
It was very limited. Yeah, ours was don't do it. Moving on. So you talked to. I mean, what you're saying makes perfect sense. I mean, with whether it's health and safety or with anything, teaching young people. I mean. And yes, as I like to say too, because some people feel that they're too old to learn things, and I don't agree with that either. So you have to continue learning. But to your point, it's best to get people when they're young, so that, because bad habits are formed out of, you know, maybe ignorance or misinformation. And then how do you break them? That's harder to break. So it's better to give them the information. Now let's switch gears for a minute. Now so you're a safety professional, but you're also a mom. So how do you balance not freaking out like about keeping your child safe? And your son is 3? Is he 2 or 3?
He's 2. He'll be 3 in November. So yeah, he's a little over 2.5. So it's so funny because I'm actually going to be doing a podcast episode on this, where it's like, where I call it Mama Bear versus Safety Professional. And I have to say that actually becoming a mom, I feel like has made me a better safety professional. It's kind of taught me things like extreme patience, where you have to reiterate something a million times. So, you know, I could tell my son, hot. Well, he didn't learn that immediately. He didn't learn it from experience yet. So the next time he goes over to touch the stove, I have to be like, no, hot, ouch, boo-boo, you know? So one, it taught me patience, that I'm going to have to reiterate this again and again and again. And that's okay, right? Because he needs to learn, and we don't learn things from just a one-time telling them. So yeah, it taught me patience. It also taught me to simplify everything. So I already am like training him, which my husband laughs all the time because I'll use words like, we went over the procedure for this, honey. And like, so he's like, oh, dear goodness. But
he's got a little manual that's like, you know, in a puppy book.
Right. I got a mommy manual for him. But it really helped me even learn how to simplify safety. so that, and I use that now even with clients, because I think when we're working with adults, we are so much harder on adults, right? We think, I told you that, you should understand this, right? So we don't give them as much just lax and leeway. We think, we told you once, you should get it. And we also tell them probably at a level that maybe is too high of a terminology for your everyday person. You know, you kind of forget that not everyone's in this world and may not understand exactly the lingo you're using. So actually like trying to teach my son safety and having to be patient and, you know, give more leeway and learn how to simplify what I'm trying to explain to him, completely like kind of changed my view. And I realized how many more hazards also there are always around us. So, you know, I thought I had a fantastically safe house for us to live in. And, you know, I did the whole mommy thing about looking for hazards before he arrived. And nope, nowhere even close to covering them all. Like, toddlers can make anything a hazard. It is unreal. And he definitely keeps me like on my toes with that. So, I mean, he'll just grab at like a soda can and slice his finger because he'll put it like in the mouthpiece and you're like, ah, you know, and then just like so many things. Just, yeah, it's amazing how they could turn almost anything into a hazard.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying though about, and I mean, I don't have any children, so I unfortunately have lost out on that lesson of patience. Maybe I need to babysit for an hour or something.
Yeah.
But that lesson of patience is important. Like you said, we don't give as much latitude to adults, and even the simplification and the communications. As you were saying that, I was thinking of, I forget the exact movie, but I think it was Denzel Washington playing an attorney or something. And I think maybe it was even Philadelphia years ago that Tom Hanks was in, when he said, he used to say in that movie, oh, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old or something like that. Yeah. And he would say that because he went, but you know, in a way you're like kind of laughing because we kind of all have this idea of like, oh, but it's true, because it's like, if we don't know something, explain it to me like you would a 5-year-old, sure. Because now guess what? I'm more likely to understand what you're talking about. And I think as adults, we're more embarrassed sometimes if we don't understand something. So we're like, oh, yes. Really? And we nod our heads and we walk away going, I don't know what the hell they just said. And that's not helpful for either party, really.
Nope. Right. That's not getting the job done, because like job as a safety professional is to keep them safe. But if they don't understand what you're saying, then that's not helping anybody, you know? And, yeah, so communication is absolutely critical. And I try to really always take that, element of like embarrassment away. So like, you know, make it more fun and be like, yeah, let's explore this together and not bring shame. Because that is something I've also seen like in my profession that some safety professionals have done, is more like the policing, kind of like that toughness. And yeah, I really don't, you know, practice in that way. Mine is all about kind of like empowering, bringing them up, including them in safety, so that they can keep themselves safe. And then it keeps them safer outside of work too. You know, it's easy for us to put a process in place at work, but if they understand it all, then when they go home, they're taking that education with them, you know, and then they get to practice safer things at home, because actually more injuries and stuff happen outside of work and at home, where you're more comfortable, you know, and you don't have those same protections and things in place. So it's important that, that they learn this stuff and can actually utilize it inside and outside of work.
Yeah. So 2 things I want to follow up on there. You mentioned communications. And since that's what my background, my degree is in, June is Effective Communications Month. So nice. I want to, you know, give an opportunity to say that to me is such a crucial, I don't care what you go into, whether it's, you know, whatever field you go into, science, math, whatever, communications is always going to be a part of our lives, personally, professionally, everything from the morning order at Dunkin' Donuts to, you know, your evening conversation with your spouse, you know, your loved one or colleagues or clients. You need good skills, you know? So I think that's so important to practice good communication, because again, isn't that like literally, to me, it's where so many problems happen. And I don't want to go off track because I want to get back to summer safety. But if you look at like the world now, or the US, the environment, you know, the divide, so much of it is misuse of words, or, you know, the repeating, the retweeting, the sharing of information that's not correct. words that were never said, inflammatory words, not asking a person, hey, what did you mean by this? And just assuming. So communication, I think, can destroy, or it can, build up and really solidify things. But so that's key, which I think is great. But also, like you said, you don't want to be a disciplinarian or create shame. And it's interesting. So many workplaces, how long have they had that kind of rigid structure? And what does it really benefit? Because nobody, no matter what age we're at, wants to be like yelled at or scolded or said, you got to learn this or else, you're not doing a good job. How are you going to get your employees really engaged and enjoying and caring about your mission and success if you don't take a human approach, a kinder approach, which unfortunately, and again, this could be a whole topic, kindness is almost seen as a weakness or a vulnerability, which is unfortunate. But so let's move on to the summer safety. And I know you have 3 tips we're going to save for the end, but anything before we get to that stuff that to talk about as far as things that people should be extra careful about, or things that you yourself are watching out for now that we're spending more time outdoors, or, being more active in the summer?
Yeah. So I always like to say that, when we go over information like this, it's really meant, once again, to like educate, be a reminder, and empower people. It's not meant to be like, don't go have fun, don't go do anything, it's just about empowering you so that while you are doing it, you have these tools and you can, once again, make like some better decisions or recognize some things before they happen. So we definitely want to go enjoy summer. Summer is, especially in Northeast PA, summer is when we finally get some vitamin D, some sunshine, fresh air. Especially after like the pandemic, we've been so cooped up. Like, you really need to get out, get that sunshine, get that air, socialize a bit, get back involved with some community events, because that all in itself is amazing for your health and safety, right? Our mental health, we need that. We need vitamin D and friends and some fun and relaxation. So for our health, it's critical, and also for your safety, because when you're healthier and feeling better, you work safer. So I like to kind of start with that. But this isn't to, scare you or say like, don't go have fun. Definitely have fun. Just keep these things in the back of your mind so that you can continue to have fun. So I like to start with that. And then I was thinking, maybe the motto of this episode could be no bummers in our summers. All right. We want to be prepared so that we have no bummers in our summers this summer.
That's a great way to look at it. And you know what? Right? Rhyming, a master class I watched, they're like, rhyming works. It really does. But truthfully, I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, it's been overdone or it's cheesy, but it helps people like remember it, and it stays in their head. But it makes sense too, because if you do something that, let's say you make a decision or a choice that's not the safest or the healthiest, or you do it a couple times and finally it bites you in the butt, and now maybe you're spending your summer in a cast or in the hospital, God forbid, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So these things, and now you're not having any fun. So like I said, try to avoid the bummers. So by being educated and by just trying to practice it, and then of course explaining and sharing with your kids who need those reminders gently, I guess, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I guess like when it comes to summertime, we'll kind of go with the biggest ones. And first, I would just say sun, right? We're outside, we're getting a lot of sunshine, which is great. We need that. But ultraviolet rays are very damaging. And we can't kind of forget that. So there's a lot of things that you could do so that you could still be out there getting your sunshine, but also protect yourself. And there was a statistic about sunburn that was pretty crazy. So having 5 or more sunburns doubles your risk for melanoma. But just one blistering sunburn, so a really bad sunburn that blisters and everything, in childhood or adolescence, more than doubles a person's chances of developing melanoma later in life. So 5 general sunburns or 1 really bad one doubles your chances of melanoma. So this isn't something that like needs to happen all the time. Even if you get 1 really bad sunburn, you are greatly increasing your risk of skin cancer down the line. So it is important for us to remember and to kind of keep in mind when we are out in the sun. And what I really like to do is honestly make sure that you involve shaded areas. So if you're outside and there's a shaded area, go in that shaded area when you're like standing around just talking and things like that. Just be aware of things like that. Wear a hat, because even if you wear sunscreen, we generally don't put sunscreen on our scalp, and our head and our scalp is also
and our
very
ears,
vulnerable.
right?
Yeah. So I always wear a hat now. Once again, it's hilarious as you get older, because once again, as a kid, we didn't do any of this. And it wasn't that we weren't lectured on it. It's just like, you just don't have that real concern for it. You don't see it at the risk level that it truly is. It kind of just seems like, yeah, sunscreen, mom, you know?
Well, and back in the 70s, like I was born in 71, like there were people like putting like butter on themselves and oiling up and putting like lemon in their hair, you know, and frying it. And I mean, so, and again, now props to my mom and dad, they're great parents, but it was different. It didn't, the level of awareness and information I had gotten when we went to Wildwood for our family trip, I had horrible sunburns because I have fair skin. I had blisters. And I remember those horrible times at night in the hotel when the air conditioning would be on, and I would have the chills and feel horrible. And again, it's not my parents' fault. They probably did their best at the time, but I mean, there wasn't as much information, and I have fair skin and I got sunburned. So I mean, and now of course I have, you know, I call them sunspots. My 30-year-old dermatologist is like, oh, they're age spots. I'm like, shut up, bitch. But no, they're age sunspots, because the more time I spend out in the sun, they pop up like gremlins, and so they're not pretty. So anyway, cover yourself.
I call them all beauty spots.
Yes, they're beautiful.
Well, that's it. My son likes to point out like moles on my body or like marks, and he'll be like, mole, like in front of everyone. We'll literally be holding him like at a party, and he's like, mole. And I'm like, oh my goodness, honey. Yeah, beauty spot. It's beautiful.
That's the Austin Powers, if anyone's seen that one. Mole.
Well, that's it. I'm going to have to show him it when it gets bigger, and then it'll be molly. But yeah, I mean, you know, we are susceptible to these things. I call them beauty marks, you know, to give us character. But it's important to cover up, wear a hat. This is honestly something I've just been doing, honestly, since becoming a mom. And I guess maybe being more aware of this stuff for him. I always wear a hat outside now. But once again, it doesn't protect your ears or the back of your neck unless you wear one of those really nice brim hats, which I make my son wear. But wear a hat, wear some sunscreen, especially if you're going to be out in the sun all day. So if you're going to be in the pool all day, at the beach, at an amusement park, definitely load on the sunscreen. You're going to have to reapply it every few hours or after you get out of a pool. But I really like to promote the shade, maybe a really lightweight long sleeve shirt to cover your body, sunglasses, hat. So those are really good practices. And in health and safety, there is never a silver bullet. If anyone ever sells you a silver bullet, probably run, because there's just never a silver bullet. We know this even with like diet and exercise. You know, you can't just, you know, take one pill and you're going to have a six pack, and maybe they're still working to develop that. But as of right now, a lot of health and safety, it's really layered, multiple layers, multifaceted. So even with everything I talk about today, there's going to be multiple layers. So yeah, wear the hat, stand in shade if you're just standing around. No need to just stand right out in the sun. Wear the sunscreen if you're going to really be exposed outdoors. And yeah, just kind of take it serious and remember that it truly is a hazard. Ultraviolet is a type of radiation, and it's a known carcinogen because it damages your skin cells. So you want to keep it in moderation and protect yourself the best you can while having fun.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, again, I say about getting burned as a kid. And, you know, as we're talking about this, I still, shame on me, and I just have to get into practice. When I go for a run now, lately I've been doing much shorter runs than I had in years past, but I don't put on sunscreen, and I really need to be. Anytime you're outdoors, like you're saying, you need to put on the sunscreen. This morning, it was nice. I went for a run locally. There's a business that has a huge parking lot, and one loop around is like a little more than half a mile, and it's safe. You're not dodging cars. And when I got under the tree in the one section, intersection, there was a couple trees and I'm like, oh, that feels so nice to shade. But I
Yeah.
didn't wear sunscreen, and I have to, no wonder. Then I look and go, no wonder you've got 75 million new spots on your arm. And I joke about those because that's humor. That's my way, but it's not healthy too. I know I'm damaging my skin. Is there, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, are there ways to reverse that damage?
So I'm not really sure of anything I've seen like truly scientific like research. Now, having a healthy diet with lots of antioxidants is always really good for repairing inflammation and damage. So I think indirectly that would definitely help, is like having a healthy diet with lots of fruits and veggies. And I use coconut oil for like everything. Coconut oil, for some reason, is like the only thing that has helped me with so many skin, like dry skin and everything. It's like the only thing that really works for me. So I use that all the time. Now, does it reverse actual damage? Not that I know of, but it's still good practice to hydrate your skin and everything and give it the vitamin E that helps our skin. So yeah, we'll have to look into if there's any actual like scientific data to support reversal.
Yeah. And I have a feeling once the damage is done, it's done. I mean, I know it's important. Like I drink a ton of water, so my skin actually surprisingly feels really soft. But I mean, I do have sun damage. I mean, but I'm not a sun worshiper through the years. I'm not someone like some of my friends were completely content on vacation to spend the entire day at the beach or the pool. I would get bored. Like I just don't enjoy that myself. So I would try not to get as much sun. So I haven't done as much damage, I suppose, as I could have. So yay for me there. But I love the coconut oil though that you mentioned, because I will cook with it, and then I love, like, if there's a little left, rather than obviously like rinse it off, I just put it on my hand and I'm like, ooh, I love coconut oil. It's so nice.
Yep. That's another one that like not until much later in life you discover it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Yep.
Yeah. So as we are kind of closing in on the end of the time we have together. So why don't I'm going to let you talk. I'm not going to interrupt, and give us a few more of the info that you had prepared.
Okay. So besides the sun, which is an obvious one as well, is heat, just heat in general. People really underestimate heat and getting overheated and heat illnesses. But it is actually one of the deadliest weather-related illnesses that you can get, is heat stroke and heat-related illnesses. So it's really important to remember. And some of the best things you can do with that is stay hydrated and make sure. Some people will drink lots and lots and lots of water and they'll still experience heat-related illnesses, because you also need electrolytes. And sometimes drinking excessive water can actually flush out even more of those electrolytes. So a really good thing, especially if you're going to be active outdoors and it is really hot out, go get some coconut water. Coconut water is a really great drink to get your electrolytes. But there's other things too. You could use watermelon juice is actually really great for electrolytes and replenishing that. So it's weird. We drink a lot, you eat a lot of watermelon in the summer, and that's actually really good. So keep that up, make that a nice summertime snack. But also making smoothies and things, that all helps replenish those electrolytes. Or another good thing is to buy like a box of those individual packets of electrolytes that you could add to your water. Those are really great to just keep on hand. So if you're going to go to the amusement park, maybe bring a couple of those, put it in your water with the kids to ensure they're staying hydrated and have those electrolytes, which help protect them. Because as I said, heat stroke is actually deadly. And what happens with heat stroke is your body gets so overwhelmed, it can no longer cool you down. So you actually stop sweating, and your body temperature, like within 10, 15 minutes, can skyrocket, and you could go actually unconscious, and it's a life-threatening emergency. So you would want to call 911, and you would want to cool that person as best you can immediately. So get them into shade, get ice water poured all over them, just cool their body down, because they're no longer doing that. But there's lesser degrees of health illnesses as well, such as just heat exhaustion and heat rashes. But also with that, you might just feel dizzy, faint. You need to get into shade. You need to hydrate, ice, cool, put cold cloth on you, whatever you can do to bring your body temperature down. So recognizing that. And that's kind of what this whole talk about just empowerment is. I can't be there to say, hey, you haven't drank in a while. It's really hot. Like, you need to start considering these things beforehand and just say, okay, we're in a heat advisory, especially if you're in a heat advisory. Make note of that. Don't plan an all-day thing during a heat advisory. It's really important that you get inside. Air conditioning is actually the biggest reducer of heat illness. So if there's a heat advisory and you have elderly neighbors, check on them. People 65 and older are the most vulnerable, as well as 4 and under. So during heat advisories, look out for each other. If people don't have air conditioning, elderly, maybe you can invite them over, or they could go to a public place during that time. But yeah, also keeping an eye out for each other. So that's kind of heat. The other thing is water safety. Obviously, summertime, you're going to be in the water. Another thing that people greatly underestimate the hazards of. What you want to do if you're ever in any open body of water, natural body of water, always wear a life jacket. And it doesn't matter if you're a good swimmer, you should still wear a life jacket if you're going to be on a lake, out in the ocean, a river, because they're natural bodies of water that are unpredictable. And you don't know where there's undertows or how deep it gets or the fluctuations that occur. So even if you are a great swimmer, wear a life jacket. There's a lot of cooler looker ones like on the market now. I know that doesn't feel cool when you're out there wearing one, but it's great practice. And it really could save a life.
Yeah.
So have that on. If you're not a good swimmer, I think, the summer is a perfect time to learn to swim. I think absolutely every single person should be learning to swim and to float.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. Let me ask you here, and I don't know if you know this or what your opinion is on it. I know one of the things that happens, and it can be deadly for more than one, but like if one person is drowning and they didn't know how to swim or they're not a great swimmer, and then a lot of times you'll see someone else might try to help them, but then they end up drowning or whatever. Yeah. What is recommended if you see someone, like, obviously if it's a child, you're going to jump in, let's say a pool, and you're going to pull them out. But let's say it's an adult who fell out of a boat, or they don't know how to swim and they're in a lake or they're in a river or something. What's the recommended way, like to give them like a branch or something that they can grab, because you don't want them pulling you down as well.
Yeah. The recommended thing is always to use something to save them. So if you have, like you said, like a branch, or you want to stick that out and let them grab that. It's like a reach or a throw of something that they can utilize. Unfortunately, you're absolutely correct with that. It's natural instinct that, if somebody's drowning, you know how to swim, like you're going to go out and help them. But that a lot of times doesn't end well, because if they're panicking, they can pull you under. If it was an undercurrent, it's now going to swipe both of you up. Sometimes you see, like at the beach, people form like a human chain. That's dangerous, but still way better than one person going out there. You actually all work together, form this chain, and try to still be grounded. Practices like that, reaching, throwing something to them. Once again, like a pool that's a controlled environment. Yeah, you can absolutely jump in there, save people. But one thing to always kind of try to stress to people that maybe you are drowning or struggling is it's so important to try to stay calm. And I mean, that's incredibly difficult, right? You're freaking out, you're scared, something's pulling you under. But they even say, like, if you're in a river and, you're being pulled along with the current, that you actually should try to relax and float with it. And what you can also do is you could swim with the current and try to swim like at an angle. So you slowly get over to the shore. Because what a lot of people do is they'll try to actually like fight it or fight to the side. And you're using all of this energy. And then that just kind of makes you weaker and even more vulnerable. So you kind of want to just try to relax, float with it, because especially on rivers and stuff, the current changes. So you'll eventually maybe hit this point where it kind of balances out, slows down, and you have more control. So you could kind of float it out or swim with the current angled towards the shore.
Yeah, and that's similar, I think, to the advice you hear with the car when a car is out of control, like with snow, let's say on snow, right? That you're not supposed to fight, like go with where it's taking the car kind of thing, as opposed to fighting it. I think that's kind of what they say. So it's a similar concept.
Yeah. Yep. And so just like little things like that can really make a difference. Always wearing the life jacket. With kids, never underestimate like the possibility of a child drowning, because it happens so quick. So if your child can't reach the bottom of the pool, put them in a life jacket, unless they are extremely like strong swimmer and there's other people around. But if there's like any doubt of if they could swim yet, still keep them in that life jacket, unless you're going to be in there with them. But if you're not going to have eyes directly on them, then keep them in that. If you're not going to have them in it, then you have to keep eyes on them at all times. They also recommend for children to put them in like bright colored bathing suits. And there's actually like guides, because certain bathing suits, you could see underwater way better. So you could keep an eye on them better. Some bathing suits just blend and you wouldn't notice them as easily. So even a lifeguard, if you're at like the ocean or lake and go under, certain colors stand out better to keep better visual on them.
Wow, now that's something I would never have thought of. That's a great tip.
I never
thought it's something
of,
easy
right?
to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of it until once again becoming a mom and then joining these mom groups and just seeing these little tips and stuff. So yeah, my son's got this obnoxious orange bathing suit and he's got his brim hat and I'm just like,
he's styling. I like this kid.
The sunscreen on the face. I'm like, oh, poor honey. But like, I just keep your eyes out for all these little things, and you're just trying to literally do the best you can do.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't ever want to experience that. Like, I can't even imagine the fear that goes along with that. So if I could avoid experiencing that, I'm going to try to make sure I consider that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So we need to be watching for obviously sun, cover up, sunscreen, all that stuff. And you mentioned like hat and glasses, but a lot of times we even underestimate our eyes. I'm always yelling at my mom, who's, like 77, like, she's had cataract surgery before, which I guess just comes with, as you get older, but we underestimate the power of like how it can damage our eyes as well, because our eyes need to be protected. And I mean, I say that and I have like cheap sunglasses, so I should probably get good ones, because we do need to block those rays from harming our eyes as well.
Yeah. So it's so like interesting because like you want to get a little bit of light, like, because then there's actually the other end of the spectrum. If you don't get enough light, that's not healthy either. So a little bit of light even in your eyes. But yeah, so if you're going out in the morning to the car, you don't need to wear sunglasses. But if you're going to be out all day, swimming, grilling, partying, yes, wear sunglasses. And that's where kind of the whole dose makes the poison idea comes into play. And that's what you need to assess. Am I going to be outside, for 20 minutes, cleaning up some things? Okay, maybe, I'll wear a hat and I won't worry about, some sunscreen or sunglasses. But if you're going to be out there all day, hanging out, having people over, then yes, you're going to have a huge exposure. You really want to protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So consider timeframes and all that and what you're doing, the activity. Yeah. So we've got the sun, we got to watch out for the heat. And, you made a great point, watching out for your neighbors, because you said they're the most vulnerable, and little children, and the water safety. And those are really the three, like the main things that we'll be doing, right? If we're spending any time outside, usually a lot of times it's around water. The sun, if it's out, we can't hide from it. Right. And then the heat, if it's a hot. Now, I personally, I know, I always laugh when I read on Facebook, it's not hot enough for some people, but I'm not a fan of hot weather. So I've been loving these days, like in the 70s. I do not like when it gets to 90 and stuff. Like, I'm just not a fan, because it's not fun. And, now that I hit 52, it's like hormones are going crazy. They've taken over the body, but it's like, when you're pouring sweat, just trying to get dressed to go out somewhere, it's like, like, it's not fun. And you get in the car and I'm like, well, I'm a sweaty hot mess. This has been fun.
Yep. Losing all those electrolytes.
Yeah, I don't like that heat that much. Really not a big fan.
I know my mom is like the same way. If she could move to Alaska, we'd be moving to Alaska. I'm like, I enjoy still right now. I enjoy the summer. I enjoy all the seasons. I love our area.
Yeah.
I love the fall. I love the winter. I love the summer. And I think it's just great to have the change, and get to enjoy each.
Absolutely. We are fortunate. I think I love the fall the most. And I actually don't mind winter. I mean, because I prefer to like be active, like I go for a run or even a hike in cooler temperatures. That's just what I like. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind, but when it gets above 80, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, it's getting too hot. Yeah, it's a little too hot for me. And again, that came probably more with age too. So, in closing, anything else that you would want to? I know I want to be able to give you the opportunity to tell people where they can find you, but anything else before you do that you wanted to mention?
Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with 3 tips. Okay. My top 3 safety tips for this summer. And unfortunately, we can't go through all hazards of summertime because there are a lot, other things to just be careful of quickly would be fire safety, firework safety. Never pour gasoline on a fire. I kind of want to just put that out there because in our area, I read these stories constantly and it just like breaks my heart. And that plays into like the whole education thing. With gasoline, the vapors catch fire. So if you're going to pour gas on an active fire or even hot embers, those vapors are going to ignite way before the gasoline even touches it. So it's going to the fire is going to follow that right up to the gas can or cup and blow up. And it's a very severe injury or life-threatening injury. So definitely be careful with fires. Even if you pour the gasoline on before you light it, the vapors start to float above the fire. So when you light it, it could still kind of blow out at you. So just be very careful with that this summer, especially, young adults love to do that stuff. I get it. I love bonfires. Just be careful and understand that. Also, ticks, bugs, mosquitoes, bees. We got to be really careful about those in the summertime. They're worse than ever. I don't know. Growing up, I lived in the woods, never had a tick. Now I can't go in the woods without finding a tick on me or my dog. They blew up with the temperatures, the increased moisture. So always check yourself, and monitor that your pets, your kids everywhere.
And are they easy to spot? I joke because I have so many spots on me that I wouldn't know because I'd be like, wait, did that move? But I mean, seriously, I have never really found one and I'm like, geez, am I just missing them? But like, you can spot them if you look closely, right?
Yeah. Yep. So you just have to look closely. And honestly, sometimes you need a partner to like check your back, your neck. I always have this fear with my scalp because I found them on my nephew's scalp. I found them on people's scalp before. Well, like my hair's dark. I'm like, you'd have to really look to like find them on my head. So like, that's the only place I'm always like leery if I could have them. But yeah, no, you should always, when you come in, take your clothes off. Check everything. You could throw your clothes in the dryer to kill in case there's anything on your clothes. Let it run for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes and just like it would kill off anything that was on there. But yeah, check yourself because they carry a lot of diseases. And unfortunately, sometimes diagnosing those diseases goes missed. So also if you ever have any symptoms of Lyme disease, get tested multiple times because even you could get a false negative. The rate is higher than it should be. So if you have symptoms similar to something like Lyme disease, even if you don't remember being bit by a tick, get tested a couple times to ensure you could really rule that out. But yeah, it's a big thing in our area. Yeah. And a lot of people we're outdoorsy, in Northeast PA, so got to watch for these things. But yeah. I'll finish up with the 3 tips because we could talk safety all day.
I was going to say and I mean, again, not to be a downer. Oh my God, there's so many hazards out there, but it's just life. There are things that we need to be aware of and there is a lot to cover. And honestly, if you follow Tammy and reach out to her you can learn more yourself. And there are some really great, obviously know your resources. There's really great, anything that's tied to a college where there's research, education, Penn State, Harvard, any of those, if you Google, you can read articles as well. But like I said, we could be talking about this all day, but to wrap up, back to you, Tammy. Okay.
So my 3 tips that I'm going to leave you off with for summer safety, let me pull them out, is dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. No bummers this summers. Our first tip is to carry an emergency bag. So I actually started doing this, I don't know, like maybe 5-10 years ago. My husband kind of started getting into like emergency prepping a little bit, but I honestly recommend everybody carry just this small bag. You could get a makeup bag, it could be a toiletry bag, whatnot. And just put everything you might need in the summer in there. And then take it with you on any adventure. Put it in the car just to have, because, we went out and I had a tick on me the one time and we didn't have anything. Like, we didn't have tweezers. We didn't have anything to take it off. And I'm just like, burn it off. And, my husband's like, no, that's not ticks. That's like leeches. But so I'm like, well, if we don't have anything else, do whatever you got to do. But really, you kind of feel a little bit desperate in that moment if you don't have the right tools. And we were camping. So I'm like, we're going to have to drive far to get something. So save yourself the panic and the discomfort and create a little go bag for summer safety, and include things like tweezers in case you get a tick. So you could address it immediately, because removing the tick, the time you remove it, the sooner you remove it, the better you are for your chances of actually getting a disease from it. So time is of importance. So tweezers, have some basic medications, Benadryl, have some of those electrolyte packets, a little thing of sunscreen, like the little ones you could get, at, Walmart or wherever, just as an emergency one. Some Band-Aids, and just a basic first aid summer kit, and then you have it together so you can easily bring it with you on any adventure. Another good thing to put in there is extra battery charger for your phone. So charge it up, put it in there with a cord, because if you ever are out, something happens and your phone is dying, you have that backup. So having a little emergency kit is always a great thing to have. The next safety tip is to bring a reusable water bottle with you everywhere. Just get in the habit of bringing water with you everywhere. And you don't have to only drink water out of it. You can add other things to it, your electrolyte mix or whatever you want, but just get in the habit of carrying it around with you. And that's good practice no matter what time of the year. But staying hydrated, especially in the summer, so critical. So just have it, and it's good for our health. So it's great practice to just start doing. So, splurge, get yourself a new bottle, find one in your cabinet, bring it on out, and try to make it a healthy habit.
Yeah. And recently when I went to visit my friend in North Carolina, and since I don't love driving, I flew, because it would have been like an 8 or 9 hour drive. I flew, and I was I forget if it was the Atlanta airport or Detroit, where they were showing the idea of bringing a reusable bottle, because obviously if you are going through security and you've bought a bottle of water that you can't take it through, obviously when you get to the other side, you could buy water, but save on bottles. So you just bring your empty bottle. And then they did have a couple places throughout the airport that you could fill up your water bottle. So that is great advice to have it with you all the time.
Yeah. You will never see me without a container. So yeah, just get in the habit, having it with you. And then the last thing is planning. So before you do anything, whether it's even just a local trip, anything, even if you're going to have just a cool day with a bunch of friends and family, just take 5 minutes to sit aside quietly and actually think about it. And just make sure that safety is a consideration of that planning and thinking. Because the best thing you can do when it comes to health and safety is prevention, so thinking about it beforehand, taking a minute. Okay, we're going to the beach today. We're going to be there all day. This is the stuff I need. What safety things should I consider or prepare for just in case, sunscreen, hats, this, write it all out. Just take a few minutes to plan and think about it, because just giving yourself those few minutes, can make the whole difference. And it can make, a trip that turns into a nightmare into one that is great, And I think it's just important for us to stop ourselves sometimes and just take a breath and let ourselves have a few minutes, literally just to think through everything. So those are my tips. Have an emergency little bag to go, carry your water bottle, and just take some time to really think about and plan any little adventures you're doing this summer.
Yeah. And that's great advice. We tend to be running around all the time, and it's what's the rush and what's the,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the pace we have. So that's good practice anytime to just like, okay, let's stop for a minute instead of being running around like, do you have this? Do you have the keys? Do you have this? Like, stop. I mean, like really just stop, take a few minutes. And then that way you're going to have a better time because you're less likely to forget something. You're less likely to forget something involved with safety so that you can have a healthy day and no bummers in the summer.
That's right. That's right. See, it's sticking already.
Yeah, I'm going to be saying it all day. So no kids on top of those roofs. Circle driving.
No bummers this summer.
No bummers this summer. I'll knock them off. No, I'm kidding. Oh my God, never. I kid. So I want to thank you so much, Tammy. And okay, Tammy, it's been a while since I said your name, Misewicz, right?
That's right.
Misewicz-Healey. Tammy, I'm going to see Tammy Misewicz-Healey of MiEHS Alliance. So Tammy is a safety expert. If you're interested in learning more about her, where can they find out about you, especially in a corporate manufacturing, any kind of company that needs some kind of training or safety? You're all about that. Where should they look you up?
Yeah. So you can connect with me personally on LinkedIn. And my name on LinkedIn is Tamara, is like my legal name, Misewicz-Healey. And I'm pretty confident I am the only Tamara Misewicz-Healey in the world. So you should be able to find me on LinkedIn. But you could also go to my website. It's MiEHSAlliance.com. And you can find more information about our services and stuff there. And I also have a podcast called MI Health and Safety. So you can definitely check that out. We're going to have more and more discussions. It's really it's supposed to be geared towards everyone and anyone, not only designed for safety professionals.
Right.
So it's a great place to kind of listen and more, have these conversations. Yeah. And then, feel free to reach out to me. I love to connect, provide you with some resources. If you're a business, I could definitely come out and help you do different trainings, whatever you need. So yeah, I'm out there and I'd love to connect.
That's awesome. And yeah, I've listened to a couple of episodes. So yeah, it's not just, obviously Tammy's podcast is not just for, HR folks or wellness folks or safety folks. It's for anyone. I was listening to one about, the dark side of self-actualization, I think. And then you were like ranking different risks. And it's interesting because we don't necessarily, just because you hear the word, sometimes words turn us off, or sometimes words, we have a misunderstanding of them. So give it a chance, listen. And, it relates to all of us. We're humans. So we go through very similar experiences every day. And, along the lines, I said June is Communications Month. I struggle with that for years with my business, Laugh to Live with Laughter Yoga. And recently I had the good fortune of being on WNEP, and I was thrilled with how Elizabeth Worthington handled it, because when people hear Laughter Yoga, they tend to go, oh, yoga. Yeah, my daughter does that, or my cousin instructs that. And they think of the tree pose, downward dog, and a yoga mat, which is all super healthy and wonderful, but it's not what I do. And sometimes it can be, sometimes people want the traditional yoga and aren't interested in what I do, but other people might want it, but think, oh, well, I don't know I can't reach my toes, or I don't want to, be all that twisty pretzel stuff. And it's like, no, it's yoga in the sense of connecting mind, body, spirit, the breath, breathing in and out, laughing, clapping, real easy stuff. So words sometimes trip us up. So I guess my advice would be take time to just learn something new. Listen. So check out Tammy's podcast, check out her website, and reach out to her with questions. Because the best way, as we said before, with communication, ask questions, right? Find out the answers from the people who know and who have the knowledge and the experience to tell you about it.
That's right. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Tammy. I appreciate your time. This has been fun. And actually, I am going to be on Tammy's podcast coming up soon. So I will give, of course, shout outs when I am doing that, because we're going to be talking about laughter. Laughter is good for health and wellness. And of course, that can help us to be safe too, because stress is a major bummer, whether it's the summer or any other time. Stress causes all kinds of illness, and it does kind of lead up to costs for companies as well when their employees are stressed. So we're going to be talking about laughter on Tammy's podcast. So I do look forward to that. But in closing, I just wanted to say thank you again to Tammy, and I hope everyone does have a safe summer. I hope you'll continue to listen. I plan on having some pretty hot stuff coming up in July, talking to some gals in Scranton who own a pole dance studio, and my friend Tina Gallagher has a new hot book series coming out that does happen to be about featuring a person from a pole dance studio who owns one. So it'll be a hot July when I have those folks on. But thank you so much. I like to say, as always, for listening. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. All show notes and guest bios can be found on our website at MiEHSsafety.com. That's MiEHSsafety.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode and had at least one damn that's good moment. You know, a moment in the discussion that just lit up those neurons in the brain. It may not be a whole new concept, but better clarity, visual, example, or tool to more effectively understand, communicate, or use on a concept. If you didn't have a damn that's good moment during this episode, well, then just damn. Share your moments in the comments or on social media with us. We want to know what brings you the most value so we can strive to deliver more. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.